Thanks, Griff. Thanks, Madeline. For more on this, let's bring in constitutional attorney Mark Smith. Good to see you, Mark. Thanks for being here. So we just heard Madeline Rivera's reporting. Can you give me your take on what we know about the jury makeup?
Well, overall, of course, we know this is not a good jury for Donald Trump because it's in Manhattan. It's impossible to get a good Donald Trump jury there. But with that said, I think this is probably the best that Donald Trump can hope for because on this jury, you do have some sophisticated people, right? You have some lawyers, you have a couple bankers and financial professionals, you have a software engineer. And I think that's very important for two reasons. The first is that these people are experienced with confidentiality and non-disclosure agreements, and they realize it's a routine thing having nothing to do with politics in most cases. The other thing, of course, is that they also understand that bookkeeping functions, which is what this case is about, Alicia, really has nothing to do with executives. The idea that Donald Trump knows what's going on in a bookkeeping program in the bowels of his company is a bit of a stretch. And I think the fact this jury is sophisticated in business, apparently, is helpful for President Trump.
Well, you know, even though these jurors have said, and they had to say that they can be impartial, Jonathan Turley isn't convinced. Take a listen.
The problem is that you have highly motivated people in New York. And some of them, I think, could very well lie on the stand and not disclose their bias. The hatred towards Trump is that great that it can overwhelm even an oath taken to speak truthfully.
Mark, this is a Manhattan jury.
Yeah, exactly right. I think the odds of Donald Trump having a fair trial here is not high. The good news is, to the extent there is a silver lining, is again, I think this jury is about as good as Donald Trump could get. But with that said, it's not a good jury at the end of the day because it's in Manhattan, and it's not a shock that you have a Manhattan-based judge in a Democratic city with this jury. It's not going to be good for Donald Trump at the end of the day. It's not going to be fair, but at least he has some jurors on there that he can possibly argue to and maybe make some progress with.
And what about the possibility of a hung jury?
I think that's a very important thing that people have not talked enough about, which is if this jury after 6 weeks is not able to come to a resolution and they become a hung jury, I think this judge will insist that the trial be retried again over the summer, which means you'll have another 6 weeks of President Trump in Manhattan when he should be out campaigning and fundraising and doing the things you do to run for the White House. And yeah, I think if there is a hung jury here, yeah, you're going to have another 6 weeks of President Trump not on the campaign trail and stuck in Manhattan, a place he's never going to win, obviously, in November.
Wow, the possibility of a second trial here in the city, that's amazing. So the former president has had plenty to say, as you know, this week, and here he is on Friday after court.
We just had another hearing, and the trial starts on Monday, which is long before a lot of people thought. The judge wants us to go as fast as possible. That's for his reasons, not for my reasons. Everything you heard in there, this is a witch hunt by numerous judges, Democrat judges.
Okay, so Mark, the former president is saying that he can't get a fair trial here, but the Associated Press has some interesting polling on what Americans think about this and his other cases. It found about 3 in 10 Americans feel that any of the prosecutors who have brought charges against Trump are treating the former president fairly, and only about 2 in 10 Americans are extremely or very confident that the judges and jurors in the cases against him can be fair and impartial. In the last seconds that we have, your final thoughts on that?
Well, I think the biggest problem here in all these cases is you don't have any victims. Usually in a criminal case, Alicia, you have someone that's testifying that I was hit over the head and that guy did it, or someone stole my money and that guy did it. Here, for example, in this case in Manhattan, there's no crime victim on the stand saying that I was victimized by Donald Trump. It's simply not there in this case, and that's going to be a big hurdle for the government, and I don't think they could possibly win this case outside of New York City or possibly Washington, D.C., only because of the jury pool that's selected therefrom.
Constitutional attorney Mark Smith, so good to talk to you on this Saturday. Thank you.